My parents told me, plain and simple, we just couldn't swing the beach house this year. Money was tight, or so they claimed. But 2 weeks later, there they were, my entire family, smiling in Instagram photos from a gorgeous private villa. And as if that wasn't enough, they had the audacity to call me afterward, asking for help with a rental issue. They had no idea what I had in store for them. We just can't make the beach house work this year, Lena. Things are a little rough right now. My mom's voice crackled through the phone line, oozing what I later realized was fake sympathy. Your dad's business isn't bringing in what we expected. I sat there in my Manhattan apartment, staring at the calendar where I'd already marked off the last 3 weeks of July, our family's beach house trip, a tradition that had been rock solid for 30 years. I had already requested time off work, looking forward to those 2 weeks all year long. That trip was something sacred to me. I'm Lena, I'm 34, and I was just about to find out how painful it can be when your own family decides you don't matter. Are you sure? I asked, trying my best to mask the hurt in my voice. I could chip in if that helps. I know how important this trip is to everyone. Especially me, I thought, remembering summers spent building sandcastles with my siblings on those familiar Hamptons beaches. Every year, that place brought us back together. Oh, sweetheart, no, Mom said quickly. We'd never take your money. Honestly, it's better if we just skip the whole thing this year. Your brother Travis and Kayla are on board already. I should have caught that small pause when she mentioned my siblings' names. Should have noticed how she sped through them like she didn't want to linger too long. But I was too caught up mourning the loss of our annual family escape. Right, I finally said. Well, maybe we can still plan a smaller get-together later this year? Of course, darling. I really have to go now. Your dad needs help with some paperwork. We'll talk soon, okay? Then she hung up, just like that. And I was left staring at my phone, a little knot forming in my stomach. I tried to shake it off, chalking it up to my disappointment. What else could it have been? 2 weeks later, I got my answer, and it hit like a freight train. I was scrolling through Instagram during lunch, not expecting anything, when I saw it. A new post from my younger sister, Kayla. The moment I laid eyes on the photo, my sandwich slipped right out of my hands. There they all were, my entire family, lounging on the deck of our beach house. Drinks in hand. A golden sunset casting a glow across their relaxed faces. Perfect kickoff to our annual beach getaway, the caption read. Family time, she added. The timestamp showed it had gone up just hours before. They hadn't canceled the trip at all. They'd just canceled me. My hands started trembling as I swiped through more posts. There was Travis, flipping burgers on the grill. Dad popping a bottle of champagne. Mom setting up her beloved seashell centerpiece on the patio table. Travis had even posted again. Nothing better than tradition. Annual beach week in full swing. That word, family, felt like a punch to the gut. I sat there in disbelief, my lunch going cold, as memories of being excluded over the years began bubbling to the surface. The missed invites to brunch. The dinners I only heard about after they happened. The group photos where I was the only one in the wrong color. But this? This was something else entirely. This was the one tradition I thought we all cherished. That beach house had been in our family longer than I'd been alive. My grandfather bought it back in 1975 as a surprise for my grandmother. Every summer, we returned there like clockwork. I learned to swim in that ocean. Shared my first kiss under the old boardwalk. We'd celebrated birthdays, graduations, and even my promotion at work right on that deck. I pulled up Mom's number but hesitated. What would confronting her even do? They'd made it crystal clear I wasn't part of the inner circle anymore. So I did something else. I opened my laptop and started digging through old emails. I needed to know how they had the nerve to leave me out like this. There had to be a reason. 3 hours later, I found it, and the truth chilled me to the bone. Last year, after Grandpa passed, my dad had stopped by my office with some papers. Just the usual stuff, he said. Tidying up the family trust and taxes. I didn't think twice. He'd always been the one managing the finances. I trusted him. So I signed wherever he told me to, not bothering to look at the details. But now, looking at a copy I finally dug out of my files, I saw the truth. I had unknowingly signed away my share of the beach house. The papers had transferred my ownership rights into a family LLC, completely controlled by my parents. I stared at the document, fists clenched. They'd set this up. Probably spent months planning it. Got me to sign, and then slowly started phasing me out of everything, until I was just some distant cousin they might tolerate at Thanksgiving. But they made one big mistake. Before he died, Grandpa had pulled me aside during our last Christmas together. "Lena," he'd said, his voice tired but still sharp, "I've left something for you with Gordon. If anything ever feels wrong with the family, go see him." Gordon Reyes, Grandpa's longtime lawyer and closest friend. Back then, I brushed it off. I figured he was just being sentimental. But now, I was ready to find out what he meant. I called his office immediately. "This is Lena Whitmore. I need to speak with Gordon Reyes. It's about my grandfather's final instructions." Minutes later, I heard that familiar gravelly voice on the line. "Lena, I've been waiting for your call. Your grandfather was no fool. He knew what would happen when he passed. Can you come by tomorrow morning at 9? I glanced at my calendar and didn't even hesitate. "I'll be there," I said, already clearing my schedule. That night, I'd barely slept. My phone buzzed nonstop with more photos from the beach house. Sunset walks, lobster dinners, game nights on the deck. Each picture was like another stab in the heart. I finally turned my phone face down, but I couldn't shut off my brain. Couldn't silence the anger, the disbelief. By 9 a.m. the next morning, I was standing at Gordon's office door. It looked exactly the same as I remembered from childhood visits: richwood walls, shelves lined with thick law books, and that faint smell of old paper and strong coffee. Gordon stood to greet me as I walked in. He was older now, hunched slightly, but his sharp blue eyes told me he still had his edge. "Lena," Gordon greeted me warmly, his eyes crinkling. "You're the spitting image of your grandmother." He motioned for me to sit, then walked over to his safe. "Your grandfather left something specifically for you," he said, returning with a thick envelope, along with very clear instructions about when you were to receive it. My fingers trembled as I took the envelope from him. Inside, I found a handwritten letter in my grandfather's unmistakable script, along with several legal documents. "My dearest Lena," the letter began, "if you're reading this, then the outcome I feared has already happened. Your father has always chased ambition, and your mother has often let herself be carried by his grand visions of legacy and prestige. I've watched them slowly cut out the people who didn't align with their perfect family picture, just like they did with your Aunt Nadine all those years ago." Aunt Nadine. I hadn't thought of her in ages. She was my mother's sister who drifted away when I was still little. The family always said she chose to walk away, and I had never questioned it. But now, I was beginning to wonder if there wasn't more to that story. "But I've made preparations," the letter continued. "The beach house isn't just a piece of property. It's the soul of our family's memories. And while your father might think he's been clever, consolidating control, there's something important he's missed. Take a look at the original deed from 1965. Gordon handed me another document, the old property deed my grandfather mentioned. As I read through the pages, my eyes widened in disbelief. "You see," Gordon began, "the beach house isn't just one parcel of land. It includes the house, the private road leading up to it, and even the dock by the water. Your grandfather never merged these parts. So while your dad might have taken over the house, the road, and dock, they're still held by the original trust." I blinked in shock, slowly piecing it together. That trust, according to these documents, was now legally in my name. Gordon grinned. "Exactly. Without the private road," he explained, "they're basically trapped. The closest public access road is about 2 miles down the shoreline, and the neighboring homeowners have fought tooth and nail to prevent any alternate routes from being built." I leaned back in the chair, my mind racing. "So they need my approval just to get in or out of the house?" I asked. Precisely, Gordon said. Your grandfather believed some lessons are best taught through lived experience. He wanted the whole family remembered, not just the convenient parts. Right on cue, my phone buzzed with yet another Instagram notification. Kayla had just posted again, another sunny, filtered shot of the beach with the caption, "Family Forever." I looked up at Gordon, a sense of clarity washing over me. Then maybe it's time they found out what family really means. I spent the rest of the morning sitting with Gordon, laying out my options and figuring out our next steps. By the time I left his office, I had everything I needed to deliver a message they wouldn't forget. That evening, I sat on my couch flipping through old photo albums filled with summer memories at the beach house. Just as I was about to close one, my phone rang. It was Mom. "Lena, sweetheart," she said, tension tight in her voice. "We've run into a bit of an issue out here at the beach house." I smiled to myself. I knew exactly where this was going. "Oh," I asked, feigning concern. "What kind of issue?" "Well, it's the oddest thing," she said, her voice faltering. "There's some kind of problem with the access road. Some permit issue. We can't get our cars out of the driveway." In the background, I could hear raised voices, Dad arguing with someone, Kayla's unmistakable whining, Travis chiming in with ideas that were clearly going nowhere. "That sounds rough," I replied, keeping my tone calm. "Almost as rough as finding out my family lied about canceling the vacation, only to go without me." The line went silent. "So you saw the posts," she finally said. "Instagram's not exactly private, Mom." "Well, I'm sure we'll sort something out," she said quickly, trying to recover. "We've got everyone here to help." "Almost everyone," I said, then hung up and powered down my phone. They had planned to spend 2 full weeks soaking up the sun at the beach house. Now they get 2 full weeks to reflect on the consequences of their choices. I glanced again at my grandfather's letter and thought, sometimes, the most meaningful lessons come from the least expected places. And this particular lesson? It was just getting started. The next morning, at 7 sharp, the calls began. First came Dad. "Lena, this is absurd. You need to fix whatever's going on with the road. We've got dinner reservations at La Mer tonight." Then came Mom. "Honey, I know you're hurt, but this isn't the right way to deal with it. We just wanted a peaceful family vacation." Travis chimed in next. "Sis, really? You're being dramatic. So we had 1 trip without you. It's not the end of the world." Then Kayla, of course. "You're ruining everything. My followers were expecting daily beach content." I let every call go to voicemail. Each message sounded more desperate than the last. Instead, I headed back to Gordon's office to go over phase 2 of our plan. "Your dad's been scrambling," Gordon said, setting his phone down after a call. "He's already reached out to 3 separate attorneys, hoping one of them could find a loophole." "And?" I asked. Gordon nodded. They all gave him the same answer. "The deed is solid. Your grandfather locked this down tight." He flipped through another folder and slid a document toward me. "And this," he said with a smile, "is the icing on the cake." I picked it up and scanned it, my eyebrows arching. "The doc?" "Yep," Gordon confirmed. "Those fancy boats your family loves so much? They're not going anywhere without your sign-off." According to the harbor master, they've got an entire itinerary of water sports and cruises lined up. Now all that's on pause. I stared at the paper, memories of sailing lessons and sunset boat rides flooding my mind, precious moments with my grandfather, with my siblings. Memories they were now trying to erase me from. "Do they know yet?" I asked. "Your dad's catching on," Gordon said. "He called me earlier, throwing his weight around." I reminded him I represent your interests now. My phone buzzed again, a message from the family group chat. They didn't know I could still see it, thanks to Travis forgetting to remove me properly. "Mom, the harbor master says we can't take the boats out. Something about dock ownership." "Dad, this has to be Lena." "Kayla, how could she do this? My influencer cruise is scheduled for tomorrow." "Travis, Dad, can't you just buy access or something?" "Dad, I'm working on it. Don't worry, I'll handle this. I handed the phone to Gordon. That's his favorite line, I said. I'll handle this. It's his way of pretending he's still in charge. Gordon chuckled, eyes twinkling. Well, he's welcome to try. But your grandfather didn't leave anything to chance. They're not getting access without your say-so. By day 3, the cracks were starting to show. Without the road, they couldn't leave to shop, eat out, or attend any of their scheduled events. And thanks to the dock restriction, their boats were basically decorations, tied up, untouched, and going nowhere. Even their grocery deliveries were getting dumped at the main road. No one would drive up the private access anymore. So they had to trek nearly 2 miles under the blazing summer sun just to pick up milk and bread. Kayla's Instagram stories had taken a sharp turn from picture-perfect family moments to increasingly chaotic updates about being trapped in paradise. Travis's wife was threatening to call her parents and beg them to come rescue her. Meanwhile, my phone was blowing up with messages from Mom. She'd cycled through every tactic, guilt trips, sweet talk, desperate pleas for reconciliation. But it was Dad's email that finally pushed me to make my move. This immature behavior ends now, he'd written. Lena, you've made your point. Loud and clear. But you're only hurting yourself. If you insist on continuing this little stunt, I'll be forced to take more permanent action regarding your place in this family. You have until tomorrow to restore access. I didn't even reply. I just forwarded the email straight to Gordon. Then I grabbed my phone and texted Mom. We need to talk. All of us. In person. Oh, thank God, she replied, practically exhaling relief through the screen. Yes, of course. When? I'll be there in 2 hours. Make sure everyone's there. The drive out to the beach house felt surreal. I'd made that trip dozens of times, always with excitement buzzing through me. This time was different. This time, I wasn't coming with beach towels and wine. I was coming armed with truth. When I arrived at the gate, I could see them gathered on the deck like spectators. Watching. Waiting. I slid my key into the lock, one thing they couldn't take from me, and drove through the gate. The moment I stepped out of the car, the humidity clung to me, thick as the tension hanging in the air. Dad was already standing at the top of the deck stairs, trying his best to look in control despite his wrinkled polo and sunburned face. Finally ready to act like an adult? He asked. I didn't say a word until I reached the deck. All around me was the aftermath of their disrupted vacation, half-empty wine bottles, board games left mid-play, cell phones charging on every outlet like they were lifelines. I thought we needed to have a real conversation, I said, meeting each of their eyes. One about truth. And family. And what those words are supposed to mean. If this is about you being left out of the vacation, Mom began. This is bigger than a vacation. I cut in, sharper than I meant to be. This is about years of being pushed aside. It's about the lies. The manipulation. About you trying to quietly erase me from what's rightfully mine. I pulled the document from my bag and laid it flat on the patio table. Like this, Dad, I said, tapping it. Want to explain what this really was? He shifted uncomfortably in his chair. It was necessary. For restructuring. No, I said flatly. It was a con. You tricked me into signing away my share of this house. Just like you've been trying to push me out of everything else that matters. That's not fair, Kayla jumped in. You're never around. You're always so wrapped up in work. We can't include you if you don't make time for us. Really? I said, pulling out my phone. Because I've got 3 family dinners on my calendar from just last month. Not a single invite. And let's not forget Travis's birthday lunch, or the planning meeting for this vacation that somehow slipped everyone's mind to mention. The silence was deafening. But you know what? I continued, voice steady. You all made one critical mistake. You forgot about Grandpa. About his trust. About the fact that this property, this house, is worthless without the road and dock access he made sure would be under my control. I saw the realization hit them like a wave crashing over the deck. Dad's jaw tightened. Mom stared at her hands. Kayla blinked rapidly, eyes glassy with tears. And Travis, he just looked exhausted. So here's what's going to happen, I said, pulling out a second set of documents, this time prepared by Gordon. We're going to redo everything. Equal rights, equal access. Everyone gets a say in family property decisions from now on. No more backroom deals. No more secrets. And definitely no more vacations I only find out about through Instagram. And what if we say no? Dad asked, his voice hard. I smiled, channeling Grandpa for a second. Then I suggest you get used to that 2-mile walk. The road stays closed. And the dock stays off limits. Indefinitely. The negotiations dragged on for hours. Voices raised, emotions flared. But by the time we wrapped things up, the sun was dipping low, bathing the ocean in pinks and oranges, just like those long-ago dinners I used to treasure on this very deck. But this sunset felt different. It wasn't just another summer night. It was the beginning of something new, something real. A chapter where I wasn't a footnote in my own family story. On the way home, my phone buzzed with a notification. I checked it at a red light. Kayla had posted a photo of all of us, huddled together on the deck. We looked a little sunburned, a lot worn down, but we were smiling. Really smiling. Learning what family really means, the caption read. Blessed new beginnings. This time, I didn't ignore it. I didn't swipe away or turn my phone face down. I liked the post. And then I added a comment. Here's to new traditions. I could practically feel their reactions from miles away. Shocked expressions, a little confusion, maybe some disbelief. The silence in that family group chat must have been deafening. Dad was probably fuming, his fists clenched tight. Mom would be staring off at nothing, pretending to be interested in something meaningless just to avoid eye contact. Travis, arms folded, keeping his thoughts to himself. And Kayla, well, she looked just like a kid about to throw a tantrum. So this is what you wanted? Dad finally growled. You came here to humiliate us? To make us beg? I didn't even blink. No. I came to make sure you never try to cut me out again. You made it clear I didn't belong. You lied. You manipulated. You took what wasn't yours. And now that you need me? Now I'm family again. I shook my head. I'm done playing that game. You're being dramatic, Kayla whined, throwing her arms in the air. It was one vacation. I let out a dry laugh. One vacation? Then why lie about it? Why trick me into giving up my rights to the house? Why exclude me from years of family plans? This is about way more than sand and sunscreen, Kayla. This is about being treated like I don't matter. Travis sighed, rubbing his temples. Okay, we get it. You caught us. We screwed up. What do you want, Lena? An apology? Want Mom and Dad to beg? Want to keep us locked out of the house forever? What's the endgame here? I looked at him and answered without hesitation. I want you to feel what I've felt for years. I want you to know what it's like to be pushed aside, to be forgotten until you're useful. I want you to sit in this house, looking out at that beautiful view, and understand that every action has a consequence. My mom had been quiet up until then, but she finally spoke, her voice unsteady. Lena, sweetheart, we never meant to hurt you. It was just a mistake. I let out a dry, disbelieving scoff. A mistake? I repeated. No, Mom. Forgetting to invite me to brunch is a mistake. Getting the wrong date for someone's birthday? That's a mistake. But tricking me into signing away my ownership? Lying straight to my face about canceling the trip, then heading off to the beach house without me? That wasn't an accident. That was deliberate. That was a plan. Before anyone else could speak, Dad slammed his hand down on the table, hard. Everyone jumped. That's enough, he barked. You don't get to come in here and hold this family hostage. You think you can blackmail us into giving you what you want. I didn't even flinch. Calmly, I reached into my bag and pulled out the stack of papers Gordon had prepared. I laid them on the table between us. Then sign these. He snatched the documents and flipped through them, his face darkening with every page. So this is your big move, he sneered. You want to restructure everything? Equal access, equal rights. I want to undo what you did, I replied evenly. You manipulated me, you lied, and you thought I'd just stay quiet. Well, I'm not. We're doing this properly now. No more secrets. No more shady deals behind closed doors. No more treating me like a placeholder in my own family. Dad threw the papers back onto the table, disgusted. And what if we refuse? I shrugged. Then I guess you'll be enjoying your twice-daily hike to the main road for groceries. The gates staying closed. My mom looked at me with wide, watery eyes. Lena, this isn't fair. I actually laughed. A real, genuine laugh. Fair? You want to talk about fair now? After everything you've done? You cut me out. You stole my inheritance. You lied to me like I was some outsider. And now that you're just starting to feel even a sliver of what I've felt, you want to talk about fairness. Kayla groaned and flopped back in her seat. Ugh, you're ruining everything. Do you even know how many brand deals I had lined up? My influencer cruise is tomorrow. I was supposed to post beach content all week, and now I've got nothing. I raised my eyebrows at her, unimpressed. So your biggest concern is your Instagram feed? Wow, that must be so tough for you. Dad was visibly shaking with anger. You think you can force us to sign? That you've won just because you have a few documents and a lawyer. I picked up my phone and pulled up an email. Go ahead. Try to fight it. Because I've already got everything lined up. I turned the screen toward him. Gordon and I have a full legal case ready to file. If you don't sign, we take this to court. And imagine how that'll play out for you, Mr. Real Estate Developer, the big family man who secretly defrauded his own daughter. Think your investors are gonna enjoy reading that headline? His face drained of color. The bravado faded. Silence fell over the deck like a thick fog. My mother sat frozen, staring at the papers, her hands trembling. Travis didn't even look at me. Kayla stared daggers, like I'd just burned her entire world down. They all knew they'd lost. You've got until tomorrow morning to sign, I said, my voice flat. Or I'll see you in court. I grabbed my bag and turned to leave. But just as I reached the car, I heard Mom call out behind me. Lena? I stopped but didn't turn around. What? I'm sorry. I closed my eyes for a second. I'd waited most of my adult life to hear those words. But now that they'd finally come, they didn't carry any weight. Not anymore. Without another word, I got in my car and drove off. Later that night, once I was home, my phone buzzed. A message from Gordon popped up on the screen. Gordon, your father just called. They're ready to sign tomorrow. I set the phone down, smiling. They tried to erase me, betrayed me, but now the tables had turned. I had the leverage, and this time we'd do things on my terms. I walked out of that house without so much as a glance behind me. My car rolled down the coastal road, the ocean stretching wide beside me, endless and free. But my thoughts? They were anything but calm. Revenge had its bite, sure. But this wasn't just about payback, it was about finally being seen. And I knew this wasn't the end. This was only the beginning. They needed to learn that I wasn't someone to be discarded. Not anymore. The next morning, I returned to the beach house, just like I said I would. I arrived early, no room for last-minute tricks or second thoughts. Gordon was with me, documents in hand, everything ready to go. The energy on the deck had completely shifted. All that smugness? Gone. That smug certainty that they controlled the narrative? Gone too. Mom was seated on the couch, staring down at her hands. Her face looked older, worn down. Regret was written all over her, though whether it was genuine or just another act, I couldn't say. Dad stood stiffly nearby, arms crossed like he was trying to hold together whatever pride he had left. Kayla sat curled into a chair, phone in hand, sulking like a teenager grounded from prom. Travis looked like he hadn't slept, dark circles under his eyes, his shoulders slumped in defeat. Good morning, Gordon greeted them, his voice cutting through the silence. Let's get this done. No one replied. Dad grabbed the pen first, scribbling his name like he was stabbing the paper. Then Mom followed, sighing loudly as she signed. Travis didn't say a word, just reached for the pen, signed, and passed it on. Kayla was last. "This is so stupid," she muttered, snatching the pen. She scribbled her name like she was slashing an enemy. I looked her straight in the eye. "What's really stupid was what you all did to me." Gordon gathered the paperwork, checked every page, then handed me my copy. "It's official," he said, nodding. I held it in my hands, heavier than I expected, not because of the paper itself, but because of what it represented. Years of being left out, pushed aside, ignored. That weight had finally been lifted. But I wasn't done yet. I slid the folder into my bag and cleared my throat. Now that it's all signed, I began. "There's something I need to say." Dad groaned. "What more do you want, Lena? You got what you wanted. You won." I raised a brow. This isn't about winning. This was about balance. About correcting years of injustice. But let's be crystal clear, I'll never let any of you treat me that way again. Silence. I know exactly how I was viewed. The afterthought. The fallback. The one you only reached for when you needed something. I looked around the deck, not a single eye meeting mine. I used to think that if I worked harder, showed up more, made fewer waves, maybe you'd let me in. Maybe I'd finally be part of the real family. But now I see acceptance was never in my hands. It was never about effort. It was always about control. Mom looked visibly shaken, wringing her hands in her lap. "Lena," she started. "No," I said firmly, cutting her off. "I'm not finished. For the first time in my life, I'm the one calling the shots. Not you. And here's how it's going to be. I don't need you anymore. But you're going to respect me from now on." Kayla rolled her eyes. "If you don't need us, why even bother with all of this?" I stepped forward, locking eyes with her. "Because you needed to learn something. You needed to see that you can't write me out of the story and then expect me to be there when it's convenient for you." Her pout faded just a little. She blinked, swallowed hard. "Yes, the access is restored. Yes, everyone gets to use the house again. But let me be clear, none of you can touch that access without my approval ever again. I made sure of it. And if anyone so much as tries to screw me over again," I said, letting my voice drop lower, "we go right back to court. No warnings. No second chances." Dad let out a cold laugh, bitter and dry. "You're acting like we're criminals." I gave a slow smile. "You faked documents to cut me out of property that was rightfully mine. I could have gone to the police, pressed charges. But instead, I leaned in just a little. I chose something far worse." Dad's brows knitted together. What did you do?" I calmly pulled out my phone, scrolling through emails until I landed on the one I wanted. "Let's just say," I said, holding up the screen, "there are some people who were very interested in how you handle business deals. It's funny how quickly investor confidence crumbles when they learn a real estate developer forged legal documents to steal from his own daughter." The silence that followed was thick and heavy. Dad's face turned the color of chalk. "You didn't." His voice trailed off. "I did," I said, cool as ever. "I forwarded copies of the documents to a few of your top investors." Gordon included a full explanation with a legal breakdown. "You can try to spin it however you want, but tell me, who's going to trust you now?" Mom gasped and pressed a hand to her mouth, her eyes wide. "Lena, you've destroyed your father." "No," I replied calmly. "He did that all on his own. I just made sure he got a taste of what betrayal feels like." Kayla suddenly jumped to her feet, panic flashing across her face. "What about me?" she demanded. "What did you do to me?" I gave her a slow smirk. "Kayla, you do know contracts are legally binding, right? That influencer cruise you've been hyping up?" "Yeah. I revoked your access to use any family property for promotional or business purposes." "Which means your partnerships. They're hanging on by a thread. Because no sponsor wants to back someone who can't deliver." The look on her face was almost too good to be true. She looked like the world had just caved in. "You're lying," she whispered. "Nope," I said, popping the pea, "but don't stress too much. I'm sure your followers will be very interested in hearing how you helped lie to your own sister for likes and sponsorships." Travis sat forward, his head in his hands. So, that's it, he muttered. You're just trying to ruin us all? I turned to him and held his gaze. No, Travis. I just wanted you to feel it, even for 1 second. What it's like to be forgotten. To be used. To be thrown aside until you're convenient again. You'll all be fine. You'll recover, eventually. But me? I'm done being your backup plan. I'm not the afterthought anymore. I'm not the person you cut out and expect to come back the moment you need something. No one said a word. You've got your precious house back, I continued, voice low and firm. But this family? That's done. I turned, picked up my bag, and headed for the door. Lena, Mom called out one final time, voice cracking. Can't we fix this? I stopped in the doorway and looked back at her. No, I said. You don't get to fix what you were never willing to admit was broken. And I left. That night, back at my apartment, my phone blew up. News alerts, social media mentions, texts I didn't bother opening. A formal press release had gone out. My father was under investigation for financial misconduct. Fraud. Kayla had posted a teary, dramatic video on her story, sobbing into the camera and complaining that people were trying to destroy her life and cancel her for being part of a family feud. Travis? Dead silent. And me? I sat on my balcony with a glass of wine in hand, watching the city's skyline light up against the dark. And, for the first time in longer than I could remember, I felt something rare. Peace. They tried to erase me from the family. But I didn't vanish. And now? They finally understand what happens when you treat me like I don't matter. You don't get to play games with me and expect to win.